Hey, what's up? It's Privacy J here. It's time to continue the the new MacBook Pro update. So, what we know, we're gonna continue where we start, where we left off, to closer look at the M3 chip lineup. Excuse my part, but we're gonna look at the new M3 chip lineup since last year was released and announced. So, and we're gonna continue, and we're gonna talk about the benchmark afterwards. So what we compare to for research. So let's go to today's topics about what we left off. What we talk about, a closer look at how the new M3 chip lineup compares. So please read.
Apple of course used all the words and phrases you'd expect for the new M3 chip lineup: groundbreaking, dramatically increased performance, unleash new capabilities, the biggest leap forward, and so on. The company also shared some graphs pointing to the improved performance of the 3 nanometer based M3 chips compared to their predecessors.
Next paragraph.
Here's a few edited highlights of what Apple had to say. Apple today announced M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max, three chips featuring groundbreaking technologies that deliver dramatically increased performance and unleash new capabilities for Mac. These are the first personal computer chips built using the industry-leading 3 nanometer process technology, allowing more transistors to be packed into a smaller space and improving speed and efficiency. The M3 family of chips features a next-generation GPU that represents the biggest leap forward in graphics architecture ever for Apple Silicon. The GPU is faster and more efficient, and introduces a new technology called dynamic caching, while bringing new rendering features like hardware-accelerated ray tracing and mesh shading to Mac for the first time. Apple Silicon has completely redefined the Mac experience. Every aspect of its architecture is designed for performance and power efficiency, said Johnny Srauhi, Apple's senior vice president of hardware technologies. With 3 nanometer technology, a next-generation GPU architecture, a higher performance CPU, faster neural engine, and support for even more unified memory, M3, M3 Pro, and M3 Max are the most advanced chips ever built for a personal computer. Ars Technica dived beneath the hype to take a detailed look at how the M3 chip lineup stacks up against previous generations of Apple Silicon. This begins with a look at the specs.
So I'm not gonna say there's like a original M Pros like M1, M2, M3, M1 Pro, M2 Pro, M3 Pro. So take a look at this of the M1 Max, the M2 Max, and the M3 Max. So these like maximum RAMs and GPU cores and CPU PE cores. So it's gonna be at least 16, 24, same. So yeah, 32 gigabytes and 36 gigabytes, um 64 gigabytes, 96 gigabyte, and 128 gigabytes, because for me it's too high. So yeah, uh, next paragraph.
The performance improvements of M3 over M2 are pretty much in line with the M2 over the M1. Apple says that peak GPU performance for the M3 series is up to 65% faster than M1's, though as with the CPU performance, this will likely vary based on which chips you're comparing. In our tests, the various M2 series GPUs are generally between 25 and 30% faster than their M1 equivalents, so the year-over-year performance increases from M1 to M2 to M3 are fairly even. Apple says that the M3's rendering performance is up to 2.5 times faster than the M1 for workloads that take advantage of the new hardware acceleration features. The M3 Pro doesn't appear to get the same improvements as the base M3 and the M3 Max. Compared to the M2, the plain old M3 doesn't get any additional cores, so it will rely solely on architectural improvements and clock speed bumps to increase performance, and it has 25 billion transistors, 5 billion more than M2, so there's still quite a bit of new hardware here. The M3 Pro is a 37 billion transistor chip, which is 3 billion fewer than the M2 Pro. That makes sense once you look at the core counts. M2 Pro had 8 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, plus as many as 19 GPU cores. The M3 Pro still has 12 cores, but it's split evenly between 6 performance cores and 6 efficiency cores, and the GPU tops out at 18 GPU cores. Maximum memory capacity does increase slightly, from 32 gigabytes to 36 gigabytes. I still expect the M3 Pro to be an upgrade over the M2 Pro because of the updated architectures involved, but it looks like less of an upgrade than the M3, which keeps core counts the same, or the M3 Max, which increases them. The M2 Pro and M2 Max use the same CPU core configuration, and my best guess is that the company wanted to create more of an incentive to jump from Pro to Max for people who don't care about GPU performance. As for the M3 Max, the 92 billion transistor count makes a huge jump from the M2 Max's 67 billion. A lot of that is accounted for by the CPU M3 Max, which includes 12 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, 4 more performance cores than the
Excuse me. Hold on. Wait. Oh, hold on a second. Sorry, let me go ahead and up. We almost forgot. There we go.
As for the M3 Max, the 92 billion transistor count makes a huge jump from the M2 Max's 67 billion. A lot of that is accounted for by the CPU M3 Max, which includes 12 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores, 4 more performance cores than the M2 Max. The GPU also gets a little bigger, jumping from a max of 38 cores to a max of 40. Maximum memory capacity also goes up from 96 gigabytes to 128 gigabytes.
Okay. We'll get to the battery life in a moment. So we're gonna start with the benchmarks right now. So yeah, what we're gonna do? Oh yes. So here it is. So single core performance. So compared to the M2 Max and the M3 Max. So what we're gonna do? So yeah. So the single core is 95 from the M3 Max and the 80 and 83 from the M2 Max. Multi-core performance. So 84 from the M3 Max and 56 from the M2 Max. And so power even
Power efficiency.
efficiency. So 95 from the M3 Max and 93 from the M2 Max. Integrated graphics is 99. It's the same as the M2 and M3 Max, the M2 Max and M3 Max. So CPU. So what's the difference? Next topic. We already read it. Battery life from the compared from the M2 and M3 from the series. Here's how to compare the M3 MacBook Pro battery life compares to M2. So please read.
Along with the upgraded performance of the M3 chips, battery life on the new MacBook Pro laptops has increased. Follow along for how the new MacBook Pro battery life compares to the predecessors. The 2023 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro laptops come with the new M3, M3 Pro, or M3 Max Apple Silicon chips that deliver the best power and efficiency that the company's portable Macs have ever seen.
Okay. Next paragraph.
And with the new custom silicon, Apple was able to extend the MacBook Pro battery life between 1 and 5 hours depending on which model you're comparing them to. M3 MacBook Pro battery life. The new 16-inch M3 Pro and Max MacBook Pro laptops offer 22 hours of video playback on a single charge, up from 21 hours with M2 Pro Max. The new 14-inch M3 MacBook Pro offers 22 hours of video playback on a single charge, up from 17 hours with the M2 Pro or Max MacBook Pro. The new 14-inch M3 Pro and Max MacBook Pro offer 18 hours of video playback on a single charge, up from 17 hours with the M2 Pro or Max MacBook Pro. The new MacBook Pro models continue to feature fast charging, up to 50% charge in 30 minutes, with 96-watt brick for 14-inch and 140W for 16-inch. Here are more details on the battery life of the new MacBook Pro laptops.
So, wireless web battery, 15 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, 11 hours, 14 hours. Video playback, 22 hours, 18, 22 hours, 17, 21 hours. Included power adapter, 70 watts, 140 watts, 67 watts, or 96 watts. 140 watts. And battery capacity is 70 WH. It's the same. 100 WH, same thing. And yeah, and fast charging as well, because it's similar to that. So yeah, move along to today's another one. We're gonna start with the last one because we're running out of time. So we'll continue about it in a week after. So we don't have time for don't have the video upcoming. So MacBook Pro comparison: how the new M2 Pro Max improves over the M1 versions. Please read.
Apple's latest MacBook Pro laptops are powered by the new M2 Pro and M2 Max custom silicon. Along with a more powerful CPU and GPU, the MacBook Pro machines support up to 96GB RAM, Wi-Fi 6E, 8K output via HDMI, and more. Read on for our in-depth M2 Pro Max MacBook Pro comparison for how everything stacks up against its predecessor.
Next paragraph.
Apple overhauled its MacBook Pro laptops in late 2021 with the M1 Pro and M1 Max chips that brought RAM up to 64GB, CPUs with up to 10 cores, and GPUs with up to 32 cores. Other additions were a 1080p webcam, Liquid Retina XDR display with mini LED backlighting, an updated I/O array with HDMI, SD, and MagSafe returning. Then the M2 Pro and M2 Max MacBook Pro machines arrived in early 2023 with increased performance, better battery life, up to 96GB RAM, 12-core CPU, 38-core GPU, 8K HDMI, Wi-Fi 6E, and more. Note: the 13-inch MacBook Pro updated with the M2 chip in 2022 is most comparable to the M2 MacBook Air rather than these MacBook Pro machines. We've also got a comparison if you're on the fence between the Air and Pro. MacBook Air versus 2023 Pro. Here's how the M2 laptops compare. Let's get into all the differences between the M2 Pro Max MacBook Pro and the M1 versions. MacBook Pro comparison: M2 Pro Max versus M1 Pro Max. CPU, GPU, memory, neural engine.
So here it is. 10 or 12 core. up to 8 terabyte, 16 to 96 gigabyte, up to 38 core, and 16 core. Same 1080p FaceTime HD camera, which is the M3, M1, and M2. So M1 Max, M2 Max, and M3 Max MacBook Pros. Speakers, 6-speaker, high fidelity, and mics is studio quality 3 mic array. So yeah, we'll go to that in a moment. Next paragraph.
Apple says the M2 Pro gives 20% faster CPU and 30% faster GPU performance than the M1 Pro, and the M2 Pro neural engine has seen a 40% speed increase over its predecessor. You've also got up to 12-core CPU and 19-core GPU with the M2 Pro.
Next one.
For the M2 Max, Apple says the same 20, 30, and 40% performance improvements apply when compared to the M1 Max for CPU, GPU, and neural engine. The M2 Max now supports up to 96 gigabytes of unified memory, 12-core CPU, and up to 38-core GPU. The overall transistor count has gone from 33.7 billion on the M1 Pro to 40 billion on the M2 Pro and from 57 billion on the M1 Max to over 67 billion on the M2 Max. Like their predecessors, both the M2 Pro and M2 Max feature dedicated media engines to offer hardware-accelerated H.264, HEVC, Priors, and Priors RAW support.
So we're gonna stop right there where we left off. One more paragraph.
Apple says the new media engine has twice the Priors support to dramatically accelerate media playback and transcoding. The new M2 Max chip continues to include 2 video encode engines like Apple did with the M1 Max.
All right. So we're gonna do one more thing. So key differences. So yeah. So newer release 10 months later, more modern
Manufacturing process 3 versus 5 nanometers.
manufacturer. Okay. Read.
Has 4 more physical cores, supports up to 128 gigabytes, LPDDR5-6400 RAM, more powerful Apple M3 Max GPU, 38-core, integrated graphics, 16.4 versus 13.6 TFLOPS, 20% faster in a single core Geekbench V6 test, 3,227 versus 2,696 points.
So Cinebench R23. So here are the benchmarks. What it says here. 1967 from the M3 Max and 24,144 and from the M3 Max and 1627 for the M2 Max and 850 Cinebench from the M2 Max. Geekbench is 3227 Geekbench and from the M3 Max and the Geek and the single core from the multi-core. So 21,167 M3 Max. 2696 from the M2 Max and 14,891 Geekbench for the M2 Max. Pass mark is 4,778 and 40,340 M3 Max from the single core and multi-core from Passmark. 4,153 from the M2 Max and 26,358 M2 Max. So yeah, the General was released back then on October on from the M3 Max, October 30th, which is 2023 last year, and January 17, 2023. And the Apple from M2 Max GPU 38 core. That's the same core to the 38 core. CPU is 12 from P core, P cores, and 8 P cores. P threads. So 12 P threads and 8. That's the same. And base frequency. So yeah. And 4 from E cores and E threads. 2.75 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz from base frequency. 16 from the M3 Max, and which is total cores, and 12 and M2 Max side, and 40 times multiplier and 35 times multiplier. L1 cache, 192K per core and 32 MB shared. And packages, so 92 billion, 67 billion, 3 nanometer, 5 nanometer, 40 watts, 30 watts. So it's 40 watt, 40W, 30W. So and Apple M socket, 100 degrees C, which is the peak temperature. And iGPU is 38 core and 500 megahertz, 450 megahertz from GPU base clock, 1600 megahertz, 1398 megahertz, 5120 shading units, 4864 shading units, 320 TMUs, 304 TMUs, 1600 ROPs, 152 ROPs. Execution. What is it?
Execution units.
Execution units. 640, 608 TGP, 70W, and max resolution 7680 times 4320, 60 hertz. And memory support. So it's 96 gigabytes and 128 gigabytes, which is like too high. So max memory channels 8 and 409.6 gigabytes. Same thing, max memory bandwidth and all of that ECC support. So yeah. Anyways, that's gonna be this today's video, an update about a new MacBook Pro. So stay tuned for the next MacBook Pro update. So what we're talking about is about cameras. What we have a test cameras is better than the 720p FaceTime HD cameras and all of what we're talking about for what we mentioned on my Facebook post. So keep you guys updated for that. So yeah. And like and comment and subscribe and let me know all about it. So if you're going to subscribe to my 3 channels, the Privacy J Productions 1, 2, and 3, and to my content, all of my social medias will let you know all about it. Facebook, my name is Jaden Garcia, and Instagram is JTech727, Snapchat is Scoot0727, and follow me on X is Privacy J NYC1. And one more thing, gotta go do some errands and all that stuff. So we won't forget about it and upcoming contents. So thanks for watching and peace out.